All right. Welcome to Arakko Public Radio, your weekly dose of X-Men comic chat. I'm Rod. This is the cipher to my warlock, my one and only Co-Mega Mutant, Keegan. This week, we're talking Axe Judgment Day number 5, New Mutants number 30, X-Terminators number 1, Legion of X number 5, and going around the Marvel Universe with Avengers 60 and Fantastic Four number 47. But first, got another Finish the Limerick challenge for you if you're ready.
All right. Okay, let's see if I can pull this one off.
You want to know so far. Judgment Day is proving to be one of my favorite Marvel days, even though these characters' lives have been set ablaze. Each issue's divine, it's aging like wine. I would call this event perfect if it wasn't for these
Delays.
You are the Limerick King.
I mean, I agree, though. The delays are killing me. Like,
Legion of X, we will get to it, but it ends at the end of the very first Judgment Day issue.
Yeah.
Not even the end, it wasn't the middle, whatever. At the hour of Uranos, we have now got 5 issues of Judgment Day. Yeah. What the hell is this event doing?
I don't even understand how it's gotten this out of hand, but here we are.
All right. Before we jump into Judgment Day number 5, let's talk about how you're Mr. Famous now.
Oh, me being Mr. Famous?
Who got comment back from Soraya herself?
I was amazed. I was just excited to see that Soraya commented at all. Like, that was incredible. I loved her, in her WWE runners page.
Yep. And then the AEW debut is this week.
Yeah, her AEW debut is this week. And another friend of mine, we always FaceTime when we're watching. And, every once in a while, there's just a match that it's fine, but we kind of end up talking about something else.
Sure.
And we were talking about the merits and demerits of Avatar by James Cameron. and then that happened at the end, and we both just fully shut up, jaws dropped, and we're like, is this happening? So I had to make a TikTok about it, and she responded.
She wasn't just not around for a while. We were told she was medically retired and could never wrestle again, was WWE's line. So yeah, it really was like a jaw dropper of a moment. But an even bigger jaw dropper is little Keegan. He sends out one video saying, like, oh my God, this really cool thing happened. And the first comment was her with a smiley face.
Smiley face.
That was awesome.
It was nice. Made a nice little add-on to my week.
Highlight of the week, for sure. That's awesome.
Exactly.
All right, you want to jump into Judgment Day number 5?
Let's do it.
Is this a test?
After Judgment was handed down in issue number 4, we see the civilian reactions. Alt-right piece of crap Tom shows some self-reflection finally, and Jada brings Captain America a cup of coffee. They commiserate, and Steve does his part to inspire her until Nightcrawler shows up with a plan. They bamf to the North Pole, where Nightcrawler informs Steve everyone on the planet's watching telepathically. Steve delivers one of the best Steve Rogers monologues ever. I've stood before tyrants before. They've all been so sure it's all over. They were all as sure as you are. I was there in 1940, and people thought it was over. Heroism isn't about strength. It's about not giving in. And truth is, it's not over as long as any of us are standing. The world can hear me. Know this. We're all Avengers now. Assemble and avenge.
So good.
And the Celestial kills them both. They immediately revive Nightcrawler, and Jean informs him it had the intended effect, directing the world's anger and bringing a certain amount of calm. Nightcrawler tells him to have another Reg Eddie for him, and he leads Wolverine to discuss a suicide mission. The Quiet Council convenes and seemingly agrees to hit the node with everything they've got, and Cersei and Star Fox inform the X-Men that the psychic firewalls for Eternals are down, and they can be psychically controlled now, circumventing the whole do not harm Celestials law. They wage all-out war. Casualties abound. Thor dies. Captain Marvel dies. Destruction is rampant, and the Celestial revels in making creative kills, which really amount to sadistic more than anything. At the Avengers Mansion, it's revealed that the loss was part of Destiny's plan, and a select group of survivors was able to get away, unnoticed by the Celestial. Star Fox, Cersei, Nightcrawler, Phastos, and Iron Man discuss who to use the few remaining eggs to revive. They land on a strike team of Wolverine, Jack of Knives, Jean Grey, and select others to infiltrate the Celestial. Detected immediately, Jack of Knives sacrifices himself. Well, Jean calls back to Nightcrawler that they're going to need to buy as much time as possible. Nightcrawler happens to be hatching the perfect leader for that as Exodus protests. Captain America becomes the first non-mutant brought back by the Resurrection Protocols. Kieran Gillen is amazing.
Oh, and thus the Marvel Universe changes forever.
Again.
Oh, it was so good.
I've been saying I think this is easily the best event since 2015 Secret Wars. Mm-hmm. If they stick the landing, that conversation's going to have to change to this or Secret Wars, which is better. Because every note, this is hitting every beat, every note so well.
No, I agree completely. It is hitting everything for me. It really is becoming a versus very quickly. And at this point, it is just, can it stick the landing?
Yep. We only have one more issue proper, but we've got quite a few tie-ins left, so we'll see. Do we want to start at the end because it was such a big moment and we have to talk about both the ramifications, or do we want to start at the beginning?
That's a good question. I mean, we can start at the beginning. I mean, either way.
Let's just talk about what inspires us in a moment.
Yes.
I liked the conversation with Jada and Captain America.
Absolutely. It was like a really good, quiet moment.
Well, and it was neat to see that they both inspired each other in a way, even though they had the exact opposite viewpoint before and after. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nightcrawler, can you get me to the North Pole? After the day I've had, the strain could kill me. Do you think I'm some kind of superhero? And then bam, they head.
And bam's there. Thing is, I do think you're some kind of superhero. Like, oh, it was such a good moment.
He had such a devastating week, but this was also like Nightcrawler's week. He kicked ass everywhere.
Absolutely. Also, one line that Cap says in that exchange, or not Cap says, actually, I want to say Jada says it in that exchange, is she says, it's a good habit in a bad world, about Cap trying to always be
like, for someone who disagrees so vocally with Captain America, she gets him.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who get him, Kieran Gillen writing a Captain America ongoing. Yes. We are going to beat that drum until it happens.
I need it so badly. And you know, I think part of it too is just like, there's a lot of people I've seen on TikTok that are like, oh, Kieran Gillen's using Captain America too much in this. You know, why are they using Captain America so much in this event? And like, if that's your thought, that's totally fine. But the way I see it is, I think because of how many tie-ins have been X-Men, people are thinking it's an X-Men event. But it's a cross-Marvel event. There's no reason to not be using Captain America.
Well, there's A, X, and E in that acronym, and we've already got the least from the A, because it's been Eternals heavy, it's been X-Men heavy. If he wants to just use Captain America to represent the Avengers side, I'm okay with that, because that's who he writes the best from the Avengers side.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he is probably the best Avenger for the scenario.
Not to jump too far ahead, but the big fight scenes when they go all out. Did you notice our boy Dupe was back?
I did.
I was so happy to see him in it, looking so angry. Is that Dr. Doom?
That is Dr. Doom.
Okay.
Dr. Doom is here to fight. Very close to Reed Richards.
Why didn't we get the story of that in the Fantastic Four tie-in issue? I want to know how they got Doom to join in on their all-out assault.
Yeah. Why is that not the tie-in issue for Fantastic Four?
Why are we not getting told why Doom is suddenly working with all of his mortal enemies with like zero effort put into recruiting him? Because that is definitely Doom.
Yeah. I mean, I would even like to see just a scene of him being like, yeah, he wanted me to say that Reed was smarter. He has to die.
That would have been hilarious. I would have been down for that. Each one of the Stepford Cuckoos drives one of the soldier Hex. Mother Emma takes Mother Reginax. So that's the first time we've heard Reginax as like a maternal figure for the Hex. But also the image of each of the Cuckoos driving one of the Hex.
Yeah.
Total Power Rangers vibes. Like, that is
totally
Zords right there.
It's Zords completely.
taking the kaiju Eternals and driving them. It's amazing.
The deaths.
I was just gonna say the deaths. Do you want to talk ramifications of those deaths and what that means for how this event has to end now?
I think so, but also just the fact that they were so brutal.
Oh, this issue was gruesome.
I was taken aback by how brutal some of these deaths were.
That was an amp up for sure, and the fact that it just describes the cruelty of its like it wants to make them ironic kills. It wants to make them these meaningful kills. That's not a god pass like a rapture or a god passing judgment would just be an instant like what we saw at the end of the last issue, zapping them. Like there's a sinisterness to this celestial suddenly that I guess has been brewing, but Jesus, it got dark.
Yeah, the creative angle, trying to make it like artistic. It's much more like creepy serial killer vibes.
Are you reading Carnage, the current run of Carnage?
Mm-hmm.
There's weird parallels there with like, because it's all about the artist and the serial killer and Carnage like working together and talking about like the beauty of the kill or whatever. And I do think this now means between Thor dying, Captain Marvel dying, just the scale of death here, there's gonna be a mass reset button.
Yeah, there has to be for everything to move forward.
So I'm still hoping this isn't just literally a matter of this was all in your heads and it was another test and we find out they pass and nothing happens.
The sins of Sinister have to do with a Moira battery resetting everything.
Maybe. But the only thing with that is I feel like they hit the Captain America revival in my mind so hard because we are going to see the ramifications of everyone now knowing that they're not reviving humans by choice, that they always had that ability and that they've chosen not to. That was the climax of the story narratively. Like that is the moment that's going to have the biggest impact going forward, which to me means we can't have the Moira clone reset because then no one would know about it. So I don't know.
True. That's very true.
It's a great point. I'm not saying I don't think that's possible, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things that's an option, but an unlikely option. I didn't think about that ramification specifically.
I do think this was a fast forward button. Among the first thoughts through my head was, oh, they're moving to the end game. Like,
yeah.
Once everyone knows, like everyone's gonna be on Orcus's side. All the human jealousy issues that it seemed like maybe we're starting to get resolved by this event are instead going to be pushed forward. I do think this squarely puts the Avengers on the X-Men side in like the public's mind. Like everyone who hates the X-Men are now going to hate Cap. They're going to hate the Avengers because they're going to know that these metahumans can be saved too.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it puts even more weight into the conversation between Steve and Scott. After all this time, how could you not tell us? After all this time, how could I?
Which is still one of the moments of the event for sure.
Same.
Speaking of Scott, not to jump to the end, but is that going to be a schism with him and Nightcrawler that Nightcrawler chose Steve Rogers over him?
I'm not sure that it will be, because I do think Scott is an intelligent enough man to know that Cap is the one that can lead the world where he can lead the mutants.
Along those same lines, I've seen varying theories. Was that a Quiet Council decision or was that a Nightcrawler rogue decision? Because Professor X is in the art there, so he's present, but Nightcrawler also sounded like he was telling Exodus, no, I'm reviving him. Do we think Xavier immediately was upset?
I think this is a Nightcrawler decision.
I think that's the way they're going. I think they're setting up Nightcrawler in some really cool ways right now. I'm wondering if Professor X even being on that panel was a mistake in the art.
That could be. That very well could be, because honestly, the thing is the way that Kurt talks about it himself, right? Because Exodus says Cyclops must return, not this heresy. This is against all the rules of Krakoa. And Nightcrawler's response is, no, it's against our custom. And customs are just habits that are way too big for their boots. As long as we live, we try something new. That's what we do.
Absolutely. I love that moment. And it doesn't make sense that he would be taking that leadership role with Xavier standing right there, especially with the current characterization of Xavier, which we're going to talk about with the next book more. But like, Xavier's a bit of a control freak right now. Like, I feel like he would have stepped in some way.
Yeah. I the more I think about that, the more it does feel like a very odd choice for Xavier to be there. And on top of that, in all of the scenes leading up to it, he is not in there. now.
Also, more of a half joking, like, nitpick, but why wouldn't Gold Balls just be the first one they revive, and then they could have all the eggs they need, and they wouldn't have to make these choices?
It's true. Unless there's some progenitor thing that we don't know about, but they should mention that, you would think.
Well, or I guess maybe they don't have other members of the five, but I mean, it seems like they revived at least 5 people, so you'd think your first 5 you revive would just be the 5, and then you'd be set. But I don't know. Maybe something else is going on. I want the next issue of Immortal X-Men because I have a feeling it's going to get into some of that.
I think so too. I mean, it's got to be. What did the flag guy say? Avenge me. I like that. Also, just hey, Celestial, be seeing you. Like Jack of Knives going out as a boss is it's a cool. I liked it a lot. Also, to skip a little bit backwards, I personally, maybe this is me reading too much into it, I feel like they packed a lot of sexual tension into the scene between Wolverine and Nightcrawler. Just that short little page. Like the way Kurt puts his hand on Wolverine's shoulder and is talking to him. I don't know.
Now that you say that, I'm trying to remember. I feel like back in that like era where Karen Gillan was writing back 2010-ish, there was some like definite undertones between those two. And I'm trying to remember if it was in his X books or other X books of the same era, but it's definitely always been like an undercurrent of
I remember that undercurrent pretty strongly, and I don't know, I feel it a lot in that one page where they're talking before the mission.
I liked the play on the machine that is the Earth. I've told it to end. The planet itself has said no. I will thrash it into obedience. For all the talk I had at the beginning of like, oh, the pink narration is going to be the new planet. That's going to be Arakko. It's going to be like, they're going to be buddies. The two machines of... Apparently not.
Apparently not so much.
Apparently I was very wrong.
But it was a very believable theory. I was on board with it the second you mentioned it. I was like, yeah, that sounds right.
I gotta say, I like the twists and turns the story has actually taken even more than I would like to add, I feel like. Do you want to revisit our buddy Tom? Because that panel was heavy.
Yeah.
It was Tom hears the sky start to burn, turns his beaten face to his family, and full of self-pity asks, "What did I do to deserve this?" His son takes a deep breath and decides it's time to tell him who he is. Tom had no idea. So that's the panel that I described last week, having read in the preview of this issue, and it stuck out so much in my mind. I had blurred it right into the last issue. I think that last sentence, Tom had no idea, is so like, we talked a couple times when we've seen this guy in the past, this piece of crap that like he was out doing racist shit, got beat up by other racists on the way home, and still didn't have the awareness to recognize like the flaws in his viewpoints. We've talked about his lack of self-awareness before, and just having the weight of that come back on him because his son finally just unleashed on him now that the world's ending.
Yep.
Powerful,
might as well, right?
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I'm a dad of a young kid, and like that's my biggest fear now is like my kid growing up to think I'm a Tom.
Right. I mean, that's the fear. Also, is Tom wearing a Fing Fang Foom shirt?
Now I need to look. That's really funny if that's the case.
I think he is.
That is 100%. That's hilarious.
That's a nice touch.
I like Kamali Waits. I love that they're really letting it seem like she's passing judgment on the Celestial. It's really an interesting beat they keep returning to.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if like that ends up playing into the end game of it all. Kamali plays into it.
I could see she's coming back in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Avengers X-Men next week is written by Kieran Gillen, and then we have Immortal X-Men I think the week after that. So we're going to be seeing behind the scenes, and but I'm very curious to see what's next.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's actually writing. It might be essentially an important issue every week for the foreseeable future, because before issue 6 we have Avengers X-Men #1, Axe X-Men #1, Axe Avengers #1, and Axe Eternals #1, each written by Kieran Gillen. So I think those are essentially going to be bonus issues, just focusing on each of the 3 teams.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
Even though we only have 1 issue left, we have a lot of Axe content still coming our way.
Oh yeah. I mean, October alone is huge. And then November we have the Omega issue.
It's weird that the pacing that they crammed. We had 4 and 5 last week and this week, and then we have over a month before issue 6. But it's because we have all these tie-ins.
Yeah, and delays, tie-ins and delays.
Yeah. Well, Did you have anything else, or you want to jump into Legion since we're talking delays?
Yeah, you know what? Since we're on delays, let's jump right into Legion.
Was this all an elaborate trap to lure us in and then insult us?
All right, Legion of X #5 opens with a creepy data page journal entry of Professor X describing Legion as a metaphorical gun he crafted carefully and deliberately, but constantly misfires, so he has to leave it in a locker, unloaded and abandoned. We see Legion, possessed by Switch, the skinjacker, run wild in the altar just to be knocked free by Blindfold. Aura Serrata arrives, angrily demanding the fugitive god be brought to her. Nightcrawler confronts her, reveals the truth he found out last issue. She's the one who let loose that god, Tumult, and he tricks her into admitting it by speaking her name first. Aura Serrata attempts to kill everyone to hide the truth and avoid arrest. Tumult and Switch have a reckoning where the god rejects his worship and reveals their location to Warlock and the rest of Legion of X. David lets loose all of his alternate personalities to subdue Aura Serrata, and Storm arrives to blackmail Aura to keep her machinations a secret from the Great Ring. We get a data page letter from Weapons Zen revealing she left Nightcrawler's side in the middle of the night, worried about the optics of any potential relationship between them. We see Tumult face the Circle Perilous and be destroyed, only for the reveal that it was in fact Switch, and Tumult now occupied Switch's original body, getting a chance at a normal life. The rest of Zen's letter reveals she knew Nightcrawler would never approve of this solution, so she did it behind his back. She explains the world needs idealists and pragmatists, but that idealists should not be burdened by the work of the pragmatists. Aura Serrata then announces the end of the God Law and that the Iraqi are now free to worship whoever they choose. She also frees Zen from servitude. Mother Righteous reveals Aura Serrata, Tumult, and many of the events through this whole arc were her doing to push David to take that deal she offered in issue 2. And the final shot of the issue is Uranos coming to begin his assault over 6 weeks ago.
This issue would have hit so much better if it came out on time.
I loved this issue. This book is finally really clicking for me and is like forming this triumvirate of X amazingness now when you put it with Red and Immortal. But my God, the delays just killed this arc. I had to go back and remind myself of a bunch because it's been so long, but that's not on Cy Spurrier. This is so well written. This arc is fantastic, and the pacing has just been destroyed by these delays.
Yeah.
Line to the issue, happy moment, hilarious line. Dr. Nemesis, who had one line the whole issue, and it was a banger. Is that a giant floating egg being ridden by a baby's body?
It's so good.
I am pretty sure the entire time we've known Aura Serrata, which has been a long time, no one has actually referenced the fact that it's a giant eye with a baby body on top.
And that's one thing that I'm just like, why is this not a topic of conversation ever?
It was such a great line.
So good.
Going back a page or two, though. That data page, is Professor X the biggest sack of shit ever?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, here's the thing. As far as metaphors go, it's a really good metaphor. However, you don't say that about your kid.
especially like a journal. So like this is just like his private thoughts of like my son is such a, and like he only like the title of the journal entry is about DH. So that's the only way. And it makes me think back to Powers or House of X. Him and Moira, like they plan their kids. They plan on sexual partners who will produce the most powerful. So like we've known that in foresight, like that was their plan, was to create these kids who were also weapons essentially. But hearing him talk about it after having the relationship with him, after like the child exists and going through however old David's supposed to be, 30 years of raising this human being, to just flippantly discard him was. We need the Professor X reckoning.
We really
This guy
do.
needs to be brought down a peg.
I really wish this had come out when it was supposed to, because it makes Professor X's judgment that much stronger.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh my God. Imagine if this came out the week before we saw that judgment.
Yeah.
I know you don't love to talk solicitations.
Yeah.
Have you seen the later Legion covers with
I
Nightcrawler,
haven't.
with the new style appearance for Nightcrawler?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Let me send you one on Discord real quick.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I just sent you the new Legion look from future issues. Give me your first take.
Okay, so this is super creepy.
Yeah.
I love it. It really leaning into the demon side of Nightcrawler.
Yeah, so when I first saw them, because it first showed up on the solicitation for December's in the background, was thinking it was something on the religious side of like, because this whole book is him building the church for the X-Men and is facing the religious aspects. Now I'm wondering if it has to do with Zin's power that we know nothing about.
Oh.
Because she talked about how she drew it. She thinks like it's the real you. Is her part of her power drawing out the real you? Like is now that she's seen what she thinks is the real Nightcrawler, does she lead to this transformation in some way?
That could be.
Just throwing it out there. It could be as wrong as many of my other wrong theories, but
well, what would be interesting too is if it's a combination of her bringing that out, but also the fact that Nightcrawler has been brought back so many times so quickly during Judgment Day that with the way the gifts change, maybe something like really accelerated.
Well, we haven't seen that in a while. We haven't seen the whole the more times you're brought back, there's ramifications played up because we've been dealing with Judgment Day. So you're at this. I'd like to see go that route.
Yeah, we could be in. That could be part of what resets the universe. Is someone's gift gets so wildly messed up.
That's possible. All right, I like the way you think.
I'm just I'm thinking out loud with that one. I hadn't considered it, but it could be the combination of the two because it's monstrous. I dig the monstrous look.
Your way makes more sense. I'm hoping we're not heading for like a Nightcrawler dark arc, like
I know,
because it's definitely a demonic and like grim looking character. But I like Nightcrawler being a good guy.
I love Nightcrawler being a good guy. I also love Nightcrawler being a badass. So.
That's fair. That's true. I really genuinely liked the kind of twist ending. I thought the switching the god and the serial killer, like, so the public still got to kill the god, but serial killer is the one that really got it.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Do you think the way that scene played out with all of David's alternate personalities and then the mirrors and everything, do you think those, like, was the implication they're gone forever? We have just David now as the only Legion personality?
Maybe, as since they're unleashed, they said, right? I have a feeling that we're gonna learn about that when we see the Uranos issue of this.
Okay.
I have a feeling that it's gonna play into that in some way, shape, or form.
That's fair. I hope you're right.
Because I think it might just be David at this point, personally. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I'm liking the way they're taking the David character.
I feel like this is one of those issues that's hard to talk about because we kind of already know where everything goes. and we have a blank spot in the middle that we know nothing about still.
I'm so frustrated that this book didn't come out when it was supposed to, because I feel like this one is a really cool piece of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's the 40th anniversary of the New Mutants. Well, in the real world, it's ambiguous year anniversary in universe, I think. We'll get into it. Anyway, it's Vita Ayala's final issue, which the letter in the back treats like it was something everyone knew, but caught everyone by surprise. Anyway, the gang is celebrating the anniversary on a space yacht hovering over Arakko. Sunspot's trying to get everyone to treat it as a formal affair, but they all just want a swim party. Danny tells a story from the very early days of the New Mutants team where Roberto carelessly breaks an ancestral belt of hers in the danger room. He sneaks in and steals it that night, and she angrily assumes he stole it. Goes to Kitty, who works to help calm her down. They try to track him down to get it back, only to find out he went and got it repaired. From that moment on, they were best of friends. More party guests show up, and Karma tells a story about when her and Shatterstar went to a music festival. She falls for a woman and tries to protect her, though the woman holds her own. And finally, Warlock is looking for Wolfsbane to exchange gifts. She tells the story of one day when Doug left Warlock at home because he had to have a Doug Day, which he misinterprets as his birthday. He and Wolfsbane go to the mall to pick out gifts for him just for the eventual reveal that Doug was actually preparing for the first New Mutants anniversary party with Sunspot and just didn't want to bore him. Embarrassed, Warlock and Wolfsbane give each other the gifts instead, and a new tradition was born. The party ends with Sunspot finally ditching the suit and having the swim party everyone wanted. And then Alyssa Wong guest wrote this nice little coda at the end of Deadpool with the current New Mutant kids training on the beach until the old guard come back from the party and kick him off of Krakoa. This was a really fun way to do an anniversary issue.
I loved it as an anniversary issue.
I thought the alternating art styles was a really great way to pay tribute to different eras of the team. Maybe nitpick corner, maybe just my neurodivergency not loving something. So there's an invitation at the front that's like written as it's from Sunspot, but it specifies 40th anniversary. It doesn't make sense with the way Marvel time works. Like these characters are all still in their 20s and they're celebrating the 40th anniversary, and like they go out of their way in the story to always have like the banners falling, and so like characters even kind of make light of it. We're like, oh, how long have you been friends? And they blow through the question and they don't answer it. And so the invitation specify really bothered me for some reason.
No, I definitely get that, because like the rest of it is so tongue-in-cheek about refusing to acknowledge it. To have it be acknowledged in a seemingly in-canon invitation is weird.
That's okay. I will move past that because I did really have fun with it. My favorite was by far the Wolfsbane Warlock story. Like, it might just be because I love the current portrayal of Warlock, but I thought that was a really fun story. All three were really sweet, though. I did really like Kitty Pryde and Danny kind of bonding over shared like longing for their religious background was really sweet. And
I thought that first story was so good. I really enjoyed that.
Alyssa writes a really fun Deadpool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most fun I've had with Deadpool in a while.
I might actually be genuinely excited for this new ongoing she's writing. Like I'm in. Like I'll check out what she can do.
I'll check it out. I'll at least give the first couple a read.
I'm shocked Vita Ayala is leaving. Like they didn't give us any sort of warning. And I kind of think maybe this was a case of Marvel really dropping the ball. So one, it just seems insulting that there's been like zero press around it. Like usually you get like exit interviews and all kinds of stuff on the Marvel website, and they start doing like the CBR rounds. It was only like 18 issues, so it's only been like a year and a half. I feel like it's been an important year and a half. It was two pretty big arcs.
Yeah.
And in that, she literally writes, as I'm sure you all know, but I looked online and like everyone was shocked. There was, I haven't seen a single forum or Reddit or anywhere where people acknowledge that they were clearly under the impression we had known about it, and yet I don't think anyone knew about it. And that feels really rude on Marvel's part to just let that slip through the cracks.
Yeah. It is the one at the end of the issue too, where it opens with, as I'm sure you all know by now, this is my last issue of New Mutants.
The next arc is Charlie Jane Anders, and it was specifically labeled as a guest writer, a guest arc. So I think we all assumed Vita would be back after Charlie's 3 issues, but that's apparently not the case.
It's interesting to see what's going to happen going
Yeah.
forward, because I have no idea what happened.
Who do you think might be writing, and who would you like to see write it?
Oh wow, okay. Honestly, I'm not sure for either one. I'd have to think about that. What about you?
I'm not sure on the who is writing it. I would not be surprised if it was a shuffling within the X office. Teeny Howard, I could see it being Teeny because she is still in the X office.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really fun to have someone from DC maybe come over and give the New Mutants a shake.
Ooh.
The New Mutants are a really fun young character team.
I think I've come up with who I would like if we are just taking kind of anyone from anywhere.
Hit me with it.
As New Mutants is a team that is frequently, of minority groups, I would like to see N.K. Jemisin, who she did Far Sector for one thing.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I think that N.K. Jemisin would knock New Mutants out of the park.
I don't think that there's much likelihood of that, but I would love that. Oh my goodness.
In a dream scenario.
Absolutely. In a dream scenario, that would be fantastic.
Because I was just thinking about it, and I was like, with the work that she did on Far Sector, which I love. Far Sector is like the first Green Lantern story that I would rank amongst like my favorite comic books.
That's a fantastic pull right there. I would definitely be down for that.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a horrible segue because I'm going straight back to cis white men. But I like the way they write, like young, especially in Star Wars stuff right now. But back when they wrote more back on the Marvel side, Charles Soule. I think Charles Soule should come rejoin the X office and write New Mutants for a while.
Honestly, absolutely. I think that would be a great one, especially like with the surprise hit of 8 Billion Genies. Like,
yeah,
it'd be a good pull.
Talking about surprise hits, Donny Cates clearly is not keeping up with his other books. What if we had Donny Cates writing New Mutants?
That would be wild.
I think back to when Hickman wrote them during like his X-Men run. He wrote a handful of New Mutants issues. I think a lot about like what Donny Cates could do with those types of stories. The dealing with the Shi'ar and just the space adventure sides, the New Mutants, and that would be a runaway.
Well, I mean, with all the stuff that Donny has been doing with Thor and Hulk, with the Banner of War stuff, I mean, even after reading Vanish, I'm like,
Vanish was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Any more on New Mutants? I feel bad that we segued away from the actual anniversary so quickly, but it really was kind of fluff. Like, it's really sweet, really nice fluff, but it was fluff.
Yeah, there wasn't much progression of anything there. It was just, we love these characters. Here's why we love these characters. And that's great. Sometimes you need that.
Yeah. Speaking of fun fluff, X-Terminators 1. All right, we open with Dazzler in Praxis booty shorts, roller skating through blood, blowing bubblegum, and the reveal she's surrounded by vampires before jumping back a few weeks to her angrily throwing out her boyfriend Alex for cheating on her. She hits up Jubilee and Boom Boom for a drunken night out where they have a fun, raucous night until Alex and his crew show up and reveal they were vampires all along. They end up overpowered and kidnapped. Boom Boom wakes up on a raft surrounded by shark monsters, while Jubilee is driving a monster truck in a crowd of Mad Max-style vehicles. Dazzler is in a creepy, monster-filled maze, but realizes her enemies are sensitive to light. Boom Boom realizes her swamp pond is full of methane and blows the ghoulies up, and a hole to reach Jubilee. Together, they break down a wall and get to Dazzler. They realize they're in some sort of domed arena and are confronted by the hooded figures who are running things, and their prized fighter, Wolverine. So first off, when this was first advertised, I thought Laura Kinney was like in the group of girls that were out having their fun night. So I was bummed until she showed up at the very end because I'm a Laura Kinney like super fan and I wanted more Laura Kinney content. But I think the fight's going to be fun.
Yeah, I felt the same way though. I thought that Laura Kinney was supposed to be like a part of the crew. But it's it's still going to be interesting to see where it goes because this was a blast.
This was so much fun. It was everything you want from like a pulpy, like it was like a grindhouse movie in X-Men comics.
It
was
totally
so good.
was. Yeah.
Blew me away like in multiple, and not just those booty shorts at the beginning, which were great, but
I love that it kind of just made good on its promise the whole way through, though, where it's just like, hey, this ain't for kids.
However, on that note, it's really weird. It's an adults-only comic, and yet they still felt the need to censor every swear word. The writer, Leah, she didn't know it was going to be on AO title until she was writing the third issue. So like it's supposed to really ramp up at that point because she knew the leash was off. But it seems weird they couldn't, in heading towards publication, if they wanted to, uncensor the swear words. So it makes me think they're going to be censored all the way through.
Might be.
I am super into this idea of short minis that just lump together characters we've always wanted to see hang out. Like this is a great idea for a miniseries.
Absolutely. I think this would be a great just kind of practice moving forward.
As soon as one ends, start another, following a different group.
Yeah.
And you know what? They didn't even need to go the grindhouse route. I would have just watched them going out drinking. Like, just give us a mini on the social lives of different characters, and I would be along for that ride too.
I like the stuff that investigates the lives of superheroes.
Me too. That said, I also really like. I'm gonna make the booty shorts joke again. I think that's a really great like tone setter that like you open that first page, and if you're not into that first page, you're not going to be into wherever this comic goes. Like the shorts, the skating through blood, like that sets up the tone like better than any first issue I can think of. Sets the tone for what you're getting.
No, absolutely. The like all of them doing their thing. The heart outfit get up. Like
I hope this mini series gets legs, and I've seen a lot of internet buzz for it. I don't know how much of that is just the circles I run in and how much this is actually permeating pop culture. So I hope this series gets the legs it deserves.
I agree. That's always the tough thing. It's like, is it popular because it's popular, or is it popular because I'm
really dialed in,
plugged into comics and X-Men at that?
Yeah.
I really had a blast with it. I feel like that needs to really be said. I had so much fun. I was giggling and like smiling ear to ear because it was just a blast.
We give this our stamp of approval.
Yes.
All right. You ready to go around the Marvel Universe?
Yes, absolutely.
I cannot think of a better happy surprise I have gotten in comics this year than opening Avengers 40, thinking, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to read a Jason Aaron issue because I have to read all of the Judgment Day tie-ins. And it's a goddamn Mark Russell masterpiece.
Yes.
How did no one tell me this existed? I
had no idea.
I was so excited. Russell has become one of my absolute favorite writers. He only puts out what feels like 5 or 6 like issues a year. He's doing the Superman Space Age right now. It's just blowing. The first issue just blew me away. He did the Fantastic Flintstones a few years ago. He did the Fantastic Four life story. There's so much goodness. Star Squadron was really good. This guy's just, everything he does is a home run. He writes philosophical but funny, and it was a Hawkeye issue. We got to watch Hawkeye's Judgment from the Celestial, and it was unlike any other we've seen. The Celestial straight up tells him who he is, and the Hawkeye first doesn't believe him. He has to teleport him to Saturn before he'll even buy into what's going on. And his challenge to him, because Hawkeye's like, you got to give me a bar to hit. Like I got to know what I'm aiming for. So he's like, all right, you just have to prove to me you have more value to the universe than that mailbox. And he points at and the way it plays out is so beautiful. Like it's amazing. He can take this concept we've seen time and time again. Every tie-in for the last month has been some character and how they deal with Judgment. And yeah, it was such a unique story. I loved Avengers 40. If you skipped it because you figured, oh, it's just Jason Aaron trying to tie into AXD Judgment Day, no. This is its own thing. It stands alone. It is worth your $4. Go buy Avengers 40.
Absolutely. There's so much that I loved about it. Yeah, yes, absolutely. The Judgment was cool. I find it interesting that it's more inconsistent Celestial stuff because,
Yeah.
like, maybe I'm just like slow on the uptake, but I feel like with most of the times the progenitor has arrived for a judgment in someone else's form, the red eye has been prevalent the whole time
Yeah.
or from the start. So I found that interesting, but I didn't mind it. I like the way it went.
I am to the point where I think the only consistency is the inconsistency. Like,
Yeah, honestly. But also, like, one of my favorite comic runs of all time is, of course, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. And this kind of felt close to that characterization for Clint.
it was definitely the closest we've been since Fraction left. Like,
Yes.
they swung hard the other way right after he left. They did the Jeff Lemire run intentionally trying to be something very different. But
Yeah.
since then, I feel like other people have tried to capture the Matt Fraction tone and have not hit it. And this still was a very Mark Russell story, but like if you went straight from Fraction Aja to this, it is so much more believable than anything else we've seen. And I don't know if you read the Thunderbolts issue that came out last month that started the new run. Very different Clint Barton take. I do not enjoy it. I enjoyed this a whole hell of a lot more. I would love if we got a Hawkeye ongoing from Mark Russell at this point. I know he's not really doing ongoings, but if he wanted to do one, I would be fully on board.
Yes, I would welcome it with open arms. Especially because, like, for a long time, thanks to Fraction and Aja's run, like, Hawkeye was my favorite Marvel character.
Yeah.
And that was like an era of hell for me, is loving that Hawkeye and having to defend to people that like only know him through the MCU why I like his character so much.
Even the Hawkeye television show, which was heavily based on the Fraction Aja run, they still didn't get the characterization right, which was a real bummer.
And
Like,
I
you
have
can't
to
do that.
keep...
Do that story with the wrong version of the character was so odd.
No. Yeah.
Further around the Marvel Universe, we also got Fantastic Four, which was labeled a Judgment Day tie-in and like technically took place during Judgment Day. Had nothing to do with Judgment Day. It was a ruse, a sham, malarkey.
Absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't nice. As a non-enjoyer of the Dan Slott run, it was nice to see the first issue with him gone, so heavily focused on Sue Storm, but there's nothing really to talk about here about that issue. It had nothing to do with the event, really.
Yeah, I feel like having a Sue Storm centric issue was nice. The fact that it was called a tie-in only because, what was it, Reed narrating in the background about the Celestial every once in a while.
The reason Reed wasn't there to just instantly solve the problem is because Judgment Day was happening.
I think it's the fact that it could have been an issue that was convincing Doom to work with them.
I feel like the fact that we came to that realization earlier just makes it that much more frustrating we didn't get that. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Every week, we ask a question and solicit community answers either in the comments or have you email them to us at arackopublicradio@gmail.com. Except for last week. It was a busy week. We're sorry. In light of X-Terminators, what is a small or impromptu team of similar powers, personalities, or both you'd love to see in a miniseries?
That's a good one. I'm going to spend like a good amount of time this week thinking on that one.
You know what? We'll be able to have an extended conversation whether we get fan answers or not on our answers, because next week is a light week.
It's a really light week.
We have X-Men 15, which is our first post-Judgment Day issue. I'm really interested to see how we handle this. Yeah. That's the opposite of the Legion of X problem. Why would you put out more Legion of X issues and hold this back a while? We have Axe Avengers #1, which, as I said earlier, is written by Gillen and is directly the fallout of Steve Rogers showing up. So should be a great issue. We have Amazing Spider-Man #10, which is a Judgment Day tie-in. So you're stuck reading it.
Sure.
And will probably be relegated to around the Marvel Universe just because there hasn't been much to say on the other two issues, but we have Gambit.
Okay. That works too. Now, I do want to revisit our fan question from 2 weeks ago, which was a fan cast, right? Any one fan cast.
Okay.
I've been holding on to this one because I like it so much.
Hit me with it.
This might be a popular fan cast. I personally haven't seen it everywhere. I want Mr. Sinister as played by Matthew Berry.
Okay. I am having to picture it, and I enjoy it.
I just all the like, you know, what we do in the shadow stuff that you see, like you give him the vampire cloak and all that.
Has Taika not included him as like a voice or anything in his movies?
I can't remember, but
I mean, he could always do a Patton Oswalt and be multiple
Yeah.
characters, but
yeah, he would be
I
my fan
love
cast.
that.
Him as Mr.
Okay.
Sinister. I think it would be fun, just like especially all the goofy stuff that Sinister says.
he would be really good at it. That's a good one.
I had to bring it up.
I'm glad you did, because now I'm gonna be picturing that in my head. All right. Do we have anything else we want to talk about?
I think that's it.
All right. I think that does it for us this week. Thank you for hanging out, chatting all things mutant with us. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. Follow us on all of the socials. I'm that nerdy Papa Bear on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Keegan is Bulk Ranger on Twitter and TikTok. And we have a channel on TikTok that does just post all our highlights, just at Arakko Public Radio. And we will see you next week.
Yes. Next time.